Today I want to share some insight from one of the most mind-blowing interviews I've ever done with an athlete in my life, which can really teach a lesson around maybe chasing the wrong things in life, even though that may make us successful. So years ago, I do this triathlon podcast called I Am Talk, and I do another one called Legends of Triathlon. And I've been very fortunate through the 15 years I've been doing these podcasts to interview some of the greatest triathletes, maybe some of the greatest sports people of all time in endurance sport. And I've had these really deep interviews, and you name all the top stars in the sport. I've been very fortunate to interview everyone in the game. And one of the athletes in the triathlon who goes down as one of the legendary athletes is a guy by the name of Peter Reid. Now, Peter Reid in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s was the man. He was the man in triathlete, especially in a long course triathlon. He just was absolutely phenomenal. And Peter Reid was kind of known as just, it's hard, just tough. You just break you down. You'd be in a race and just mentally to beat Peter Reid was such a big thing. And he's one of the only athletes in the history of sport to win the Ironman World Championships more than 2 times. He ended up winning it 3 times. There's a handful who have won it twice, many have won it once, and only a handful have won it more than 2 times. And Peter Reid is one of those athletes. And years ago, I was very fortunate to do a Legends of Triathlon podcast with him. And this is where he finished his career, and we're kind of doing a reflection kind of interview based on his career. And we're talking about his career and stuff. And he shared this really amazing insight around motivation. And he started off by telling us that when he was an athlete, his main motivation was to prove to his father that he was somebody. That ultimately, as a young man, his father had maybe rejected him or made him feel that he wasn't accepted, or maybe, just didn't love him or something like this. And his whole athletic career was very much like, I'm going to show you that I'm somebody in this world. And he was driven, going back to that, he was just so tough that he was willing to, one of the things about endurance sport is one of the things we often think about is just who's willing to hurt the most for the longest period of time. And this kind of motivation to kind of prove to his father that he was someone important in this world gave Peter this ability to work harder than elite athletes at the top of their game in this very competitive sport. And for a period of time, Peter went on and achieved amazing things with these things as his motivation. And he tells the story in this interview we did with him. He said, after I won my 3rd Ironman World Championship, I received a letter in the mail from my dad. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this. He said, I received a letter in my mail from my dad, and it basically just said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I underestimated you, and in underestimating you, I didn't really see you for how great you are as a person. And I'm sorry because ultimately you are a great person. No, not just because you're a great athlete, but just because you're a great person. And I hope you accept my apology, and you can see that I'm really proud of you as being my son and for all the things you are in the world. And Peter Reid says something after he told us about this, reading this letter, and he said, in that moment, I lost all of my motivation. My motivation to be the greatest athlete in the world died in that moment. And basically from that moment forward, I don't think he ever won a race again. And not long after that, he pretty much gave up his Ironman career. And Peter Reid's a really interesting guy as well, because often what you do is when you get athletes who have been really elite in an area, once they finish that sport, they stay in that area, don't they? You think of like commentators or people who stay in the sport for the rest of their life. Well, Peter Reid didn't do that. He basically gave up Ironman in a very short period of time after that and became a pilot. And ultimately, all he ever wanted to do in life was to be a pilot. And at that time, once his father gave him this letter, he lost the motivation in the sport. And he actually shifted his direction to an area of life that he actually always wanted to chase anyway. Now, there's a real good lesson in this, because I think sometimes when we reflect upon what motivates us, sometimes what's motivating us maybe isn't that healthy. And maybe there's some deeper work to be done in actually confronting the area that you maybe need to confront. Now, I'm not going to go deep into Peter Reid here right now, but maybe he was just better off at some stage in his life just having a conversation towards Dad, saying, look, I don't feel that accepted by you, and what can I do to help us build this relationship? And sometimes when we think about motivation, there's this concept of away motivation and toward motivation. Are you moving toward, or are you moving away from something? And I just want, why am I sharing this story with you is probably a good thing, do you have motivation in life that is a good driver for you, but ultimately is making you disguise a deeper thing that you need to work on? And maybe instead of chasing the thing that you're working on, that you're using that motivation for, maybe sometimes it's worth to actually go, why am I really motivated in this area? And what should I be doing to develop myself or help me to overcome the need for this motivation? Like when Peter Reid got that letter, he lost his motivation to be an athlete because he no longer needed to chase the thing that he needed to prove in the world. And I think ultimately what he was saying in our interview is that he was a happier person after that moment. Now maybe if he had addressed that earlier in his life, he wouldn't have had the triathlon career he would have had, but he might have found a better place within himself earlier in life. So when you think about your motivation in life and you think about the areas where you're motivated but maybe for the wrong reason, is it worth spending some time to do some deeper reflection to go, maybe I'm better off motivating myself or exploring about working through the need for this motivation so I can overcome some bigger hurdles in my life. If I'm speaking to you right now and you know I'm talking to you, maybe do that work. It could be really powerful and maybe it will liberate you in ways that you can't even see. Kind of like what Peter Reid did. If you enjoy my pieces and you want to bring exercise into your life, you need to check out my book, I Will Make You Passionate About Exercise. This book is designed to be a step-by-step journey that teaches you the right lessons and experiences to guide bringing exercise into your life, not just for a moment, but where you get to the place where you have a long-term love of exercise. So you get fitter, you get healthier, you have great stress releases, and you feel amazing about yourself. This book has been hugely successful, getting into the top 10 in the world for health and fitness books. So if it's time for you to bring health and fitness into your life, go to Passion About Exercise, click on the link, go through the process, and you can be starting your journey of finding your love for exercise really soon.